All right, guys, welcome back. All right, so I just recorded half of it and it stopped recording on me. So I'm going to go back so you'll see some of it is already written, obviously. So today we're going to start using the calculator. So you need your calculator handy. So pause the video and go get your calculator if you need it. But before we start the calculator part, I want you to do these 7 questions right here. So I've got 7 questions, all non-calculator. So I want you to pause the video, do these 7 problems down on a sheet of paper or something, and then come back and check your answers. So right now, pause the video and do these 7 questions. Okay, welcome back. Here are your answers. Boom. Okay, so check your answers, see how you did. Do them again if you need to. Again, on numbers 2, 4, and 7, you're finding the angle, and all the other ones you're finding the ratio. Okay, so now we're going to get into using the calculator. So again, that's why some of this is already written, because I did this, like I said, and it stopped recording at me. So now if we do something like sine of 100 degrees, if you look at my picture here, there's the reference angle on a 100-degree angle is 80 degrees. So if you think about a triangle with 10, 80, 90, that's nothing we can do without a calculator. So we're going to now go to the calculator. You're going to type in sine of 100 degrees. So if I go to the calculator here, I'm just going to type in sine of 100. Oh, and before you do that, you need to make sure you go to your mode. Check your mode and make sure that it's in degree mode. If you're on this app, you're going to have to change it back to degree mode almost every time. So you type it in, 0.984 is our answer, which is actually our ratio. That's the answer. That's what we're finding. What is the ratio? Well, because it's sine, it's the ratio of opposite over hypotenuse, but we're just, we're finding it and using the calculator now. Okay, so same thing with cosine. We have the cosine button. The angle here is a negative 231, so the angle rotates here into the second quadrant. So if you think about all students take calculus, we're in the second quadrant, cosine is going to be negative. So if you look at our answer, which I'll go to the calculator here, but our answer is negative, that's why, because we're in the second quadrant and cosine is negative. So cosine of negative 231, again, we go to the calculator, cosine of negative 231, and it spits out the ratio right away. Okay? So you should be following along on your calculator. So it seems really easy, right? Then we get to cosecant. Well, if you look on the calculator, we don't have a cosecant button. We have a sine, a cosine, and a tangent button, and that's it. So in order to do the cosecant, we need to remember that cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. So if you look at this right here, that's how I can write cosecant. Cosecant is 1 over sine of theta. So we're going to rewrite this using sine down here. It's equal to 1 over the sine of negative 133. I go to my calculator. You can use the fraction button if you want. I'm just going to go 1 divided by sine of negative 133. That's what it was, right? Yeah. And we get negative 1.367. Again, why is it negative? It's negative because negative 133 is in the third quadrant, and sine, which is the reciprocal function of cosecant, is negative in that quadrant. So cotangent. Cotangent of 37 degrees, 14 minutes, and 16 seconds seems kind of like a crazy angle. That's called degrees, minutes, and seconds. I just wanted to do one example with that. So first of all, this is just an angle, nothing crazier than 100 degrees, but it just looks crazier. What the degrees, minutes, seconds does is it gives you a very precise angle. It's to a very small fraction, so that's what it is. When you go to the calculator, I can't do it on this calculator here, but if you go to see the apps button here, I can't circle or show you anything, but there's the apps button. You can see it moving a little bit. Above that button, it says angle in blue. You're going to go second angle, and the first thing you're going to get will give you the degree symbol. Then you type in the 14 and then do second angle again, and you'll get the minutes, which will be number 2. And then the seconds is a little bit different for the 16 seconds. If you look above the plus sign in green, it looks like quotation marks. So you have to go alpha plus sign, and that'll give you the degree, the seconds. So again, you're going to go to the calculator and you're going to type that in. See if you can do it in your calculator. I apologize, the app doesn't let me do it. So you go 1 divided by tangent of 37 degrees, 14 minutes, 16 seconds, and this is your answer here. Okay, so make sure you can get that on the calculator. Pause the video if you need to play around with that a little bit to get that to work. Okay, so shifting gears now. Now we're finding the angle. We're finding theta. So if we're finding the angle, remember we've done this before. How do I get rid of sin? We have to undo it by doing the inverse of both sides. I'm not going to really show that anymore. I'm just going to look at this equation here that's in purple. So I'm going to get rid of this and just know right away that this is what I'm going to type into the calculator. Inverse sine of 0.346. Now, all I'm doing in the calculator is I'm finding the reference angle. So I type in inverse sine of 0.346. Go ahead and type that in your calculator. Inverse sine, we're finding an angle. And the calculator gives you 20.242 blah, 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 blah. Okay, but that may be an answer and it may not be an answer. Think about this ratio here is positive. Where is the sign positive? Sign is positive in the first and the second. So the reference angle of 20.242, that's going to be an answer. But how am I going to get this second quadrant answer? Well, this is where if you do this in the calculator, so I'm going to go inverse sine, what was it, 0.346, I think? Yeah. So right away, when I get my reference angle, I'm going to stow that in for x. And now I'm just going to be able to do everything in the calculator. What do I want? I want the second quadrant answer, so I know I'm going to have to take that answer minus 180. So if I'm in the second quadrant, I'm going to go 180 minus x. So right here, I'm going to go 180 minus x, and there's my second quadrant answer, 757. So one answer is 20.243. I think that rounds up. And the other answer is 180 minus that, which is 159.
I don't know, but I see the clip where it's
0.757. So those are my two answers. Remember, when you're finding an angle, you're going to get two answers. I'm going to erase that because that's not an answer. These are my two answers. If you wanted to check that, you could say, okay, what is the sine of 20.243? Plug that in my calculator. I'm going to get something pretty close to 3.346. We rounded it, so it'll be a little off, but it'll be relatively close. Okay, so let's try another one here with, we'll keep it nice. We'll keep it easy right now because we have the button. I'm going to say tangent of theta equals negative 1.631. Okay, now, the ratio, if you look at this ratio, it's negative. So I'm going to think to myself, where is the tangent negative? All students take calculus. Tangent is negative in the second and the fourth. So I know I have to be in the second and the fourth. So all I care about is the reference angle. So when I put this in the calculator, I am not putting in the negative. I'm just going to get the reference angle. So I'm finding an angle, I'm going to use inverse. Inverse tangent of 1.631. I type that in my calculator only to get the reference angle, 0.631. And so I get 58.4866, blah, 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 blah. Okay, once again, I'm going to stow that in for x. So maybe I should do this in the calculator here. Inverse tangent of 1.631. That's my reference angle. I stow it in for x. Now I'm going to use my calculator to get all my answers. If I'm in the second quadrant, I know I'm subtracting because I'm not going to get all the way to 180. Here's my reference angle of 58 point blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to get all the way to 180. I'm going to be shorter than that. I'm not going to get all the way to 360. I'm going to be shorter than that. So here I'm going to subtract. So I'm going to go 180 minus x. There's one answer. And I'm going to go 360 minus x. There's the other answer. And so then I can quickly get those answers if I stow them in for x. So what did I say? 360 minus x. So our second quadrant answer is 151.725. I'm rounding it to 3 decimal places. Fourth quadrant answer is 331.725.
Where's everybody else?
Always two answers. Always two answers. Most common mistake is people forget about the two answers. Okay, so now we're going to look at something where we don't have the calculator button. So secant of theta equals negative 1.4. We don't have the secant button, but what do we know? We know secant is equal to 1 over cosine. So the reciprocal of this is 1 over cosine. I'm just going to take the reciprocal of this. Okay, that's the easy way to think of this. Here's the long way to do it, and I'm never going to do this again. But if I put this over 1 and I cross multiply, I get this equal to 1. Now I get the cosine by itself, so I divide by the 1.4, and this is what I end up with. This is what I'm focusing on to plug into the calculator right now. The quick way to do this is literally when you know you're finding an angle, you always are going to do inverse. Always going to do inverse. I'm going to tell you right now, never, 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 never do you type in inverse, or no, I'm sorry, do you type in 1 divided by any inverse. If you are finding yourself typing 1 divided by inverse of something, you're wrong. You will never, ever, ever go 1 divided by inverse. You will always put the inverse in first. So for example, I'm going to go inverse cosine of 1 divided by, and again, I'm ignoring the negative because I already know what quadrants I'm going to be in. Cosine is negative in 2 and 3, so that's where we're going to be. Okay, so I ignore the negative. I'm not putting the negative in the calculator. So I'm going to go inverse cosine 1 divided by 1.4. And there's my reference angle. I'm going to stow it in for x. My second quadrant answer is 180 minus x. My third quadrant answer, I'm going plus 180. So I'm going to do 180 minus x, 180 plus x, and go from there. So what are my answers? 135.5. 135.584 and 224 point. This is a lot easier for you with the calculator. 415. So if you think you've got it, go ahead. I'm going to do one more example here. Okay. Again, if it was cosine of theta equals 0.31, you're just going inverse cosine of 0.31. If it's secant of theta, and this is to get the reference angle, if it's secant of theta equals 1.93, you're doing inverse cosine, because that's the reciprocal. I take the reciprocal of this side and get cosine, and then I take the reciprocal of this side. Again, I'm just doing quick ways. These would be finding the reference angle, and then we would put it in the quadrants. If it's cotangent of theta equals 1.25, I don't have a cotangent button, so I'm going to take the reciprocal of cotangent, which is tangent, and then I need to take the reciprocal of this side. When do I take the reciprocal of the ratio? When I don't have the button. I don't have a cotangent button, so I have to take the reciprocal. I don't have a secant button, so I have to take the reciprocal. Here, I have a cosine button. I don't take the reciprocal. All right, I'm going to do one more. I'll do, what haven't we done? A cosecant. Negative 1.123. So I do not have a cosecant button. I'm going to take the reciprocal. The reciprocal would be sine. So I'm thinking to myself, this is 1 over sine equal to this. So since I'm going to take the reciprocal of this, I'm going to take the reciprocal of this. Inverse sine of the reciprocal. Whoops, and I didn't write it. Inverse sine of 1 divided by 1.123. Once again, take note, I am not putting in the negative. I know sine is negative in 3 and 4. So I'm not putting in the negative here. So I go to the calculator. Inverse sine of 1.123. Nope. I need to go 1 divided by. So there's my reference angle, 62.9 da-da-da-da. Stow it in for x. So look at what quadrants we're in. We're in 3rd and 4th. So here I'm going to add 180. Here I'm not going to get all the way to 360. Remember, we never use 90, never use 270. So I'm going to go 180 plus x, 360 minus x. So those are my answers. 242, 242 point blah, 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 blah. Of course, you would round that to 3 decimal places. And 297 point blah, 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 blah. Okay? You would put 3 decimal places. I just can't go back and forth between the calculator. All right. Let me know if you have questions. Thanks.